So today a vibrating sender, and what's inside of it and how does it work? Or an oscillating or eccentric sender or whatever they call it. Of course it has to be working, otherwise I wouldn't even bring it, says the seller in the flea market. Of course. Just the buzzing, not moving. Let's see the label. 230 volts, 50 Hz, 135 watts, 10,000 RPM, the dimensions of the sandpaper on it probably, and now let's try to stick it in my watt meter, just to have a rough idea. About 450 watts. Of course the motor isn't moving. It could be something mechanically stuck or some seized bearings, which could be fixed or relubricated, but more likely it's short turns in the windings of the motor and it's hopeless. Nobody's going to rewind something like this these days. But anyway, let's open it and see the internals of it. You can see some nuts here, the screws here, about 8 of them, so let's remove them and see. The screws are loosened and does it open? That was easy. That's the cover. And here you can see the internals, the motor here. The power comes in through this cable, some interference suppression inductor, the switch, the carbon contacts, another inductor for interference suppression here, some bearing, the commutator, this is the field coil for the motor, it's a winding, and the windings on the rotor of the motor, which I guess are shorted, some interference capacitor here, some cooling fins here and here. There has to be some mechanism to make it vibrate, something eccentric. This thing's using a universal motor, which is basically a brushed motor that could run on both DC and AC. But here it's used for AC. Unlike a DC motor, this one has a field coil instead of a permanent magnet. And because of this, every time the polarity changes in the rotor, it also changes in the stator, which means the direction of the torque stays the same. This turns the same direction in both half cycles of AC, and it would also turn the same direction for both polarities of DC. And this type of motor can be also much faster than an induction motor. An induction motor is limited to the frequency of mains. For 50 Hz it would be at most 3000 RPM, but this one runs at 10,000 RPM. Brushed or universal motors are also much smaller and cheaper than induction motors, and an induction motor would have to have a gearbox, increasing the speed if you needed 10,000 RPM from it. But a universal motor can do this without a gearbox, and being small and lightweight and cheap to make, this is why they use them. But of course these typically have a short life. There is not much to go wrong in an induction motor, but in a universal motor the brushes can wear out, the carbon contacts wear, even though this one actually has a lot of the carbon contacts left. But in the small cheap ones typically the windings fail before the contacts wear out. These sliding contacts cause a lot of interference, and also a lot of sparking, a lot of transients, high voltage spikes. And it typically damages the lacquer on the wire, basically the thin insulation, insulating the turns from each other. It develops short turns, then it stops running or runs much slower, but draws way more power. So if you keep running it, it will overheat and start smoking and burning. And typically it's the rotor that shorts, not the field coil. I guess the rotor is actually exposed to more spikes and also to mechanical stress. And of course it doesn't have ball bearings, just sleeve bearings. These also wear out. These things are really not designed to last very long. It's more for a hobby than some professional use. It has seen some use, I can see some sawdust in it, but not much. I don't see any obvious signs of burning on the windings. There is some blue paint on it, but no completely darkened sections. I guess when it stopped working, the user stopped holding the button. You wouldn't believe how few people are actually intelligent enough to stop trying to run it when they notice the motor is buzzing without turning. But anyway, let's try to disassemble it and clean it and relubricate it. There is some chance, but I still think short turns in the motor can be more likely. Here's the mechanism. This eccentric thing with a counterweight here. And the motor comes out. It doesn't have any housing. In these things the housing of the motor is the housing of the whole device. Here's the sleeve bearing, quite dirty. The rotor. Doesn't look bad actually. Another bearing here. This is actually hard to move, sort of. When your bearing is full of sawdust, it really helps with the lubrication, doesn't it? Here's the field coil and not really much else. These are quite simple. Quite nice carbon contacts actually. Is there actually a needle bearing in it? Then it's not that bad, is it? This seems fine. If something was seized, it would be this one. I can't really get to this bearing to properly clean it because this one is press fitted on it, this one as well. So just in absolute desperation I flushed it with the brake cleaner and lubricated it a bit with this. And the dodgy testing time. Nice. We're really not sure how long this is going to last, but it still could be a combination of both a bad bearing and some short turns. And the power consumption is about the double of what it says here, so probably short turns anyway. After just several seconds of operation, this thing is almost too hot to touch. I can just keep my fingers on it for a few seconds, and of course it's unplugged. The rotor coils are actually not hot, this one is. But it can easily be the other way, the hot one is the good one. And this coil is in a series with these coils, so if these are shorted, you have way more voltage on this one, which is getting hot then. More voltage also means more current in it. Let's measure the resistance of the rotor windings and slowly turn it. And the resistance goes as high as 47 ohms. As I slowly turn it, it goes down as low as 6 ohms. That's odd. Now it goes back up all the way to 45, 47, 48, and then back down again. There is a lot of segments here, and as I turn it, I'm always adding one here and removing one here, so the fluctuations in the resistance should be just small. Yet it was actually changing about 7 to 1, so there has to be some shorted section in it. Some dodgy testing technique, let's power it in series with the lamp. Not recommended, of course. The brightness fluctuates as I turn it. Here it's brighter, the shorted section. Here it's dimmer, farther from the shorted section. There has to be a short turn in the rotor, which you're supposed to unplug before touching it, of course. Okay, so this one is a total loss. You can see the main is coming in through the switch. From the switch through this double inductor, then it goes into this parallel capacitor, and also one goes through this inductor to one contact, then the other carbon contact continues through the other winding on this inductor, then it goes into the field coil and it goes back. One of these is live, one of these is neutral. The capacitor is 220 nano, 250 volts, or 275 volts AC. The switch 4 amps or 1 amp inductive loads or motors, 250 volts, 2 poles, it can be locked in, it unlocks. And yes, it was actually turning, but with shorted turns, it will turn into a smoke screen in half a minute. Let's connect just the field coil in series with the current limiting lamp. It seems to be attracted to some gaps much more than the others. The gap where it's attracted probably has the shorted section of the winding going through it. Normally the AC magnetic field goes through the inside of the rotor, but a shorted section displaces it outside and it basically jumps the gap. Lamp is brighter in some positions and dimmer in some positions. Basically, brighter when the shorted turns are this way and dimmer when the shorted turns are this way. The coil has less impedance when the magnetic field goes through the shorted turn like this, and more impedance when the short turn is this way, which basically does not affect it. So that's it, unfortunately not fixable today, but at least you could see what's inside of it, how does it work and how to diagnose it. Maybe I can keep some parts from it, the capacitor and the carbon contact, the switch. Maybe the wire from this one could be reused, it's not in resin like this one. And if you like my videos, please consider subscribing. And and also supporting this channel on Patreon or using the thanks button based on how much you've learned from my videos. And big thanks to all of you who already support me.